Chapter 1. The Perfect Morning. The city wakes before she does. Grey light presses against the curtains. That particular London grey, the colour of intention without warmth. Through the gap in the fabric, the street below is assembling itself. A postman with a red bag, moving too slowly for the cold. A woman in a yellow coat who stops to look at her phone. A black cab pulling away from a curb. Ordinary things, blameless things. Claire Ashworth is 37 years old, and she is, by any measure that counts, fine. She surfaces from sleep the way she has learned to, deliberately, taking inventory before her feet touch the floor. Body, present, breathing, steady. The dream, whatever it was, already dissolving at the edges. She lies still for a moment longer than necessary, looking at the ceiling. And then she gets up. Her flat is on the third floor of a Victorian conversion on a quiet street in Stoke Newington. She has remade it entirely in the 18 months since she stopped sharing it. The bookshelf, reorganised by feel rather than alphabetically. A second desk in the room that used to be their room. Plants in every window. Not because she has always loved plants, but because she decided she would. They are all, impressively, alive. She moves to the kitchen in bare feet, already reaching for the coffee machine out of habit, and stops. The red light is on. The timer is running. The display reads 7:14. The carafe is already full. The coffee is the precise dark roast she keeps on the third shelf, and the smell of it fills the kitchen like an answer to a question she hasn't yet asked. She doesn't remember setting the timer. She stands in the doorway, facing the door for a moment, as if retracing her steps from the night before. Then she picks up the carafe. She pours. She drinks. The coffee is perfect. She looks at the digital controls on the top of the machine, the timer controls. She looks at the setting. 7:14. She is almost certain she didn't set the timer last night. Almost certain because she never uses the timer. She prefers to turn the machine on manually as a kind of proof that the morning belongs to her. Almost certain is not the same as certain. She sits down at her desk by the window and opens her notebook. Below, on the street, the ordinary world continues its ordinary business. She begins to write, and within a few sentences, she has filed the coffee machine somewhere in the category of things that have reasonable explanations, alongside the door she once found unlocked that she was sure she'd locked, and the bedroom window she sometimes discovers cracked open on cold nights and cannot remember opening. The notebook fills slowly. The city thickens with morning. It is a good day. She can feel it. The particular lightness of a day that intends to behave. She gathers her coat, her bag, her keys. Takes one last look at the flat, the books, the plants, the machine with its red light now dark. And she steps out into the corridor and pulls the door firmly shut. On the street below, a figure stands at the corner in a grey coat and baseball cap, face turned toward the building's entrance. When she emerges onto the pavement, the figure turns. Doesn't follow her, simply turns and walks in the opposite direction, unhurried, as though a box has been ticked. Not pursuit. Vigil. Chapter 2. Familiar Frequencies. It is 11 days later, and Claire knows something is wrong. She does not know it yet the way you know a fact. She knows it the way your body knows, the way the hairs along your arms know, the way you keep checking a room's corners, not because you expect to find something, but because you cannot stop looking. Claire is meeting her friend Rosa in a cafe on Thames Street, an upmarket Italian coffee shop frequented by the achingly cool of the local neighborhood, and she is telling her about the book. The book is a Patricia Highsmith she keeps in the small table beside her bed. A habit. She reads a page or two before sleeping. 3 days ago, she went to find it, and it was on the kitchen counter. She had not moved it. She is certain of this, the way she is not certain about the coffee machine, because the Highsmith is a ritual, and she is a person who keeps faith with her rituals. She moved it back to the bedside table. The next morning, it was in the kitchen again. Rosa is the kind of woman who asks useful questions. She doesn't say, "Are you sure?" or "Couldn't you have just?" She says, "Who has a key to your flat?" And Claire opens her mouth to say, "Only me," because that is the true answer, has been the true answer for 18 months. And then she hears it, from some quieter room in her memory, the particular sound of a key being removed from a hook and placed in a coat pocket. She never changed the locks. She never changed the locks because she changed everything else. The furniture arrangement, the bookshelf, the side of the bed she slept on. And in the exhaustion of all that remaking, she had filed the locks under obvious, but she had never actually done it. The name she has been not thinking for 11 days arrives in the room like weather. Gordon. She excuses herself. The bathroom at the back of the cafe is small and overlit. She stands at the mirror and she looks at her own face with the expression of someone reading a sign they wish they had read sooner. She runs the timeline in her mind. Each small wrongness she has assembled and re-explained over 18 months. And now, placed side by side, they are not separate things at all. They are one thing. They have always been one thing. She goes home. She catalogues each room on her way through. A new habit she doesn't want. Kitchen, fine. Living room, fine. Bedroom, fine. She opens the bedside table drawer. The Highsmith is there. She exhales. She goes back into the lounge, turns the light on, and sees that the kitchen drawer has fallen open. The one that sticks, that requires a particular upward angle to get it to close properly. So the one she doesn't use. And in the bare, empty space inside the drawer, glowing under the counterlights, she finds an envelope. Inside the envelope, a photograph. It is a photograph of her, asleep, taken from inside her bedroom. She is lying on her left side, an arm outstretched. The light in the photograph suggests somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. She is wearing the grey t-shirt she wears in winter. She sits down on the kitchen floor, back against the cupboards, photograph on the tile beside her. She sits very still while the flat ticks around her. The clock above the stove, the refrigerator's small mechanical hum, the traffic outside doing its indifferent evening thing. Her phone rings. Unknown number. She answers. Silence. And then, underneath the silence, the texture of someone breathing. And then, you left the hall light on again. You'll run up the bill. He hangs up. She sits on the floor for a long time after that, not shaking, not crying, something stiller and colder than either of those things. The hall light is on. She can see the line of yellow beneath the kitchen door. He can see it from wherever he is standing. She does not get up to turn it off. The hall light burns all night. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Care. Thursday arrives, and Claire, instead of waiting for the locksmith, takes the central line to Bethnal Green and walks to the building where Gordon lives. This is a choice that requires a particular kind of courage, the kind that is indistinguishable from anger at a certain distance. She does not tell Rosa where she is going. She does not call ahead. She braces herself and presses the buzzer. She walks up the 2 flights of stairs she has not walked in a year and a half, and she knocks on the door of flat 12. Gordon Mercer opens it the way he opens everything, with a quality of preparedness, as though doors are not surprises. He is 41, lean, dressed in the orderly way of a person who irons socks on Sunday evenings. He looks at Claire the way a person looks at a thing they have been expecting for some time. He steps back. He holds the door. She goes in. His flat is quiet, a particular kind of quiet that is not the absence of noise, but the presence of control. Everything on its shelf. Everything parallel. She asks him, "How long?" He tells her, without hesitation, in the tone of a man answering a reasonable question. 3 weeks after she left. She'd had a fall, black ice, on the pavement outside a shop in the high street. And she'd been alone on the ground for several minutes before anyone stopped. He had decided, he explains, that someone needed to be responsible for her safety, even if she didn't know they were. He says this plainly. He says responsible, the way you might say present or attentive. He does not lower his voice. He does not look away. You were alone. You needed someone. "Do you hear yourself?" she snaps. He looks at her with genuine puzzlement. The confusion of a person whose internal logic has never once, in all its meticulous construction, anticipated this objection. She walks to the shelf above his desk, a row of small, matching notebooks, 12 of them. She takes one and opens it, and reads in his careful handwriting. 14th of March. She took the 73 bus at 8:15, arrived at the office at 8:47, wore the blue coat. She looked well. Good day. She puts it down, takes another. 7th of October. She was tired when she came home. Didn't eat much. Could tell from the kitchen light. Kept the reading lamp on until nearly midnight. Worrying. There are 12 notebooks. 18 months of her life. Observed and recorded and worried over. Her moods and her meals. Her late nights and her early mornings. Her visitors and her groceries, and the colour of her coat. A relationship she never consented to have. She has been cared for, in his accounting, every single day since she left. The tenderness in his handwriting is real. One neatly penned line reads, "Oh, can't you see? You belong to me. How my poor heart aches." That is the part she cannot find a container for. "I've kept you safe," he says. From what? He opens his mouth. He closes it. He looks at his hands. The silence is the first fracture. She watches it happen in his face. The first moment his architecture admits light. She moves toward the door. "I know about the new one," he says. Not raised, not hard. "Marcus. I've seen him twice. He parks badly. He seems careless. It is not a threat. That is what makes it something worse than a threat. It is an assessment. He feels he's still responsible for her. She opens the door. She walks down the 2 flights of stairs without looking back. In the stairwell, she leans against the cold wall and presses both hands flat against it, as though the building's solidity is a thing she needs to borrow. Her breath comes out white in the cold air. She is shaking. Finally, now, she is shaking. Chapter 4. What Love Leaves Behind. The following morning, 7:13. Claire stands in her kitchen and watches the clock change from 7:13 to 7:14. Nothing happens. And then she reaches for the coffee machine and turns it on herself, manually, deliberately, and waits while it works. She had spent the hours between 3 and 5 a.m. at her desk, unable to sleep, writing a list of the incidents she remembers, dated and precise, making a record. At 8:30, she opens the door to a detective, a woman in her mid-40s with the particular briskness of someone whose patience is professional rather than personal. She gathers her notes and the photograph and leaves with the detective. They take the Central line together. Gordon opens the door. He looks at the detective, then at Claire, then back, and then he stands aside. He does not say, "I can explain," because he is not a man who lies to himself about what he has done, only about what it means. He sits down at his table, his back to the room. The detective moves through the flat efficiently, photographing the notebooks, the view from the reading chair by the window that faces the road. Gordon watches her with the expression of a person watching something they built being catalogued. The flat is quiet. except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft clicking of D.C. Webb's camera in the next room. Claire stands behind Gordon, hands clasped behind her back, as though holding herself together by the smallest margin. Gordon sits at the table, hunched over, eyes lowered. For the first time since she arrived, he looks smaller. Not physically, but in the way a structure looks once you finally see the cracks. D.C. Webb steps into the hallway to take a call. The door closes behind her. Silence settles. Not the controlled silence of Gordon's flat, but something raw, unshielded. He speaks without looking up. Was any of it real? The question lands between them like something fragile and dangerous. It is not a challenge. It is not a plea. It is the voice beneath all the other voices, the one he has never allowed himself to use. Claire watches him for a long moment. When she answers, her voice is steady, but not unkind. It was real. That's why it matters. He stands up to face her. The words hit him not as comfort, but as truth. The kind that rearranges a person from the inside. He receives it with the stunned stillness of someone who has finally been handed the correct map of a place they thought they knew. Not a dismissal, not forgiveness, just the truth. The truth he never asked for because he assumed he already had it. D.C. Webb returns. The moment closes like a door. The love was real. That is precisely what makes this what it is. That evening, Claire's flat has new locks. The locksmith's receipt on the window desk, the plants in the windows, the highsmith in the bedside table. She makes coffee. Standing at the machine, she sets the morning timer herself, 7:14, and she watches the timer light come on. And there is something in the act of setting it that is different from having it set for her. The same time, but an entirely different thing. She takes her mug to the window. Rain has started. It distorts the edges of things. The street below is doing its evening, ordinary thing. A man walking a dog. A woman pushing a bicycle. Two teenagers moving slowly in the manner of teenagers who have nowhere to be and nowhere else to be. She watches all of it. She watches for longer than she needs to. The city doesn't know what has happened to her. The street continues. The lights are coming on in the buildings across the road, square by square. Each one a small yellow fact of existence. None of them knows about her. None of them is watching her. And this should feel like freedom. And it mostly does. And in the part where it doesn't, she recognizes the mark that has been left. Not a wound exactly, a changed perception. The awareness, now permanent and non-negotiable, that to be seen is not the same as to be safe. She turns from the window. Her shape moves away from the glass, growing smaller, ordinary, uncatalogued. Everything is in its place, including Gordon. The light in the kitchen goes off. Dark. Was any of it real? All of it was. she leaves the hallway light on.